The 1985 World Chess Championship was played between Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov in Moscow, Soviet Union from September 3 to November 9, 1985. Kasparov won to become the 13th and youngest world champion at the age of 22. Game 16, Kasparov's masterpiece. Anatoly Karpov, playing as white, versus Garry Kasparov, playing as black. The first 10 moves of Game 16 were identical to those from Game 12. Karpov was the first to deviate, but Kasparov had analyzed the position deeply in his preparation before the match and was able to take the initiative, despite playing with the black pieces. Kasparov's positioning of a knight deep in his opponent's position as early as move 16 was spectacular and ultimately decisive. The knight remained in place until move 34, when Karpov was forced to sacrifice his queen to remove it. Quite frankly, this is one of the best games ever played. Kasparov once again plays a daring gambit in full knowledge Karpov, and his seconds have had over a week to prepare for it. Kasparov's idea is so deep even Karpov underestimated the strength of it and is dragged into a position where his pieces are helpless due to a dominating knight on d3. Karpov refuses to return the pawn, which allows Kasparov to dominate the game. In the end, Karpov is bound hand and foot, and all he can do is sit and await his execution. Karpov start with e4. Kasparov replies with c5. Knight f3. e6. d4. c take d4. Knight take d4. Knight c6. Knight b5. d6. c4. Knight f6. Knight 1 to c3. a6. Knight a3. d5, a dubious move, a move surely studied in depth by Kasparov's seconds. Nero sacrifices a piece to obtain a good activity of his own pieces, a typical variant of these Sicilian positions. C take d5. E take d5. E take d5. Knight b4. Bishop e2. This was Karpov's improvement over the 12th game of the match when, after bishop c4, with bishop g4, Kasparov equalized without trouble, and the game ended in a quick draw. Bishop c5. There's a great idea behind this move, but there is a slight tactical flaw. This in no way takes anything away from the genius of Kasparov's idea. Castle kingside. Strange that someone like Karpov, but evidently Anatoly felt obliged to try to win in this position, in which he had material advantage, while neglecting to realize that this position had already been superanalyzed by his very strong opponent. Castle kingside. Bishop f3. After bishop g5, follow knight b take d5. The black should draw without any particular difficulty. Bishop f5. Preventing the white knight getting into play via c2 and grabs the d3 square for the knight. Bishop g5. Rook e8. Kasparov makes it look easy, but it was essential for him to control the e4 square as white was threatening b4 when black is robbed of all his compensation. Queen d2, it's an inaccuracy. Here white should be looking to return the extra pawn. Knight c4 is Kasparov's suggestion. b5, denying the c4 square to the white knight. Rook a to d1. Knight d3. Kasparov establishes a monster knight on d3 that white will struggle to remove. Knight a to b1. Karpov could have played more actively here. With d6 would have been better, although black's position is still superior after queen take d6. h6. It's a good time to kick the bishop as it cannot go to e3 for tactical reasons. Bishop h4. b4, good move. Removing the white horse from an excellent position and depriving the horse in b1 of any perspective. Knight a4. If knight e2 is met with g5. With g4 to follow, trapping the light square bishop. Bishop d6. Kasparov wrote that he had reached this position in his preparation, which is amazing considering white's 11th move had never been played before, and white's moves haven't been at all forced. It just shows how much preparation top players do. Bishop g3. Rook c8, further restricting the white pieces. b3. Threatening knight b2, forcing the d3 knight away when white would unravel his pieces. How does black prevent this? g5. A very good move. Not only does it prevent knight b2 with some simple tactics, but there is a much deeper tactical idea behind it which we will soon see. Let's take a quick look at the white pieces. Neither knight can move at all. The queen and rooks also have no squares. The dark square bishop has no squares and can only be exchanged for his black counterpart. Bishop take d6. h4 is the only alternative here when the black with knight e4 is winning, but I don't want to bore you with the huge amount of variations here. Queen take d6. g3. White gives his bishop a retreat square, so black is once again faced with the problem of preventing knight b2. Knight d7. The black's position is better. Bishop g2, it's an inaccuracy move. Another try is knight c4, which is well met with black's move knight 7 to e5, but the variations that arise after this are too long to go into here. Queen f6. Black's masterpiece is complete. The white forces are helpless. They must merely wait for whatever fate has in store. a3. a5. Great move. A take b4. A take b4. Queen a2. Pitiful. White is reduced to bringing the queen to a 2 where she achieves nothing to threaten to bring a knight to d2, a threat that is easily parried by black. Bishop g6. Opening the queen's line to f2, preparing to refute white's only active idea. d6. White needs to try something else. Black will have no problems building his attack at his leisure. Knight d2 fails by black's move rook e2 when black crashes through on f2. g4. Black is not interested in the measly d-pawn. Queen take d6 allows black to start freeing himself with knight d2. Queen d2. The queen returns having achieved absolutely nothing. King g7. Black calmly defends the h-pawn. There's no rush. f3. White tries to break free at his king's expense. f4 is met with bishop f5 calmly stopping the pawn before taking advantage of the newly weakened king. Queen take d6. Black can now capture the pawn as the king's position has been sufficiently weakened. f take g4. Queen d4, check. King h1. Knight f6, threatening knight take g4 and knight e4. Rook f4, h3 loses by rook e3 when white can no longer defend. Knight e4. Queen take d3. The knight was a key piece in the downfall of the white position and survived on d3 for no less than 18 moves. Knight f2, check. Rook take f2, forced. Bishop take d3. Now there is an explosion of one-sided tactics as Kasparov rounds of this perfect game. Rook f to d2. Queen e3. Rook take d3. Karpov now has 3 pieces for the queen, normally a reasonable exchange, but his pieces are not sufficiently coordinated to counter Kasparov's attack. Rook c1, brilliant move, a finesse that concludes the game. Knight b2, it has a mistake. This allows black to force mate, but black is won anyway. Queen f2, the only way to force mate. Knight d2. Rook take d1, check. If Kasparov's move rook e2 mates next move. Knight take d1. Rook e1, check, and Karpov resigns. Kasparov wrote about this game, such games are remembered for a long time, and in particular by the winner himself, after literally putting part of his soul into the sustained realization of his plan. After watching this spectacular match, which will undoubtedly remain in the chess history of all time. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe.